With it being December, I figured I need to do an Ice-type Nuzlocke, so today we're going to complete one in Generation 1, rules are in the description. In terms of Pokemon that actually have the Ice typing in Generation 1, there are only 5, Lapras, Jynx, Dugong, Cloyster, and Articuno, and seeing that one of those is a Legendary, we won't be using that, so we have 4 encounters for this playthrough, and seeing that Shelder and Seel are just pure water types who don't learn water moves before Brock's level cap of 14, and Jynx only has Pound and Lovely Kiss, I think it's pretty obvious who our starter for this is going to be. If we were going by type matchups on paper, technically Charmander would be the hardest for us to face, but considering that 3 of our 4 encounters are also part water type, I figured Bulbasaur would give us the biggest challenge, and I just want you to see how long this lab battle takes. We only have Water Gun and Growl. It's great because we have super effective damage against Brock, but Misty and Onward is gonna take some finagling, which I'll get into. While footage of me heading through Viridian Forest plays in the background, let's talk a bit more about ice types. I know this screenshot from Bulbapedia talks about ice types in every main game series, but if we were to make it just Gen 1, the average for the special stat would be 99, and defense would be 95. Of course, I am factoring in Articuno stats to this, because it is an ice type after all, so those numbers would be lower if it wasn't, and Cloyster's 180 base defense definitely helps that average defense, where Jynx's base 35 does not. I wish we got encounters sooner instead of once we get to Celadon, and with me mentioning that, you might be thinking, is Lapras going to stay under the level cap? And I'll get into that. Let's just jump straight to Brock. I know I could have defeated him on minimum battles, and that probably will be the case when I do a solo run with this thing eventually. I actually have a level goal for Cerulean in mind for when I do run it in a solo run. And since Lapras is our lone Pokemon right now, I actually do want to talk about its Gen 1 learn set. We get Sing at level 16, which having a sleep-inducing move will help against Misty, the rival, and Surge, who will be a giant threat. But what if I told you, Lapras doesn't even need to face Surge? Keep that in the back of your mind for now. Covering the rest of its moves, we get Mist at 20, which actually does have a bit of use. If you don't know what Mist does, it prevents your stats from being lowered, like accuracy, for an example. Body Slam at 25, 1 level past Lieutenant Surge's cap, but there is the TM for it on the SSN, Confuse Ray at 31, Ice Beam at 38, and Hydro Pump at 46. Its TMs are great. Of course it gets the water and ice moves, but it also gets moves like Solar Beam, Thunderbolt, Thunder, and Psychic. I would love to teach this thing Psychic, but with the encounters I showed you at the beginning of the video, I think you can assume who's going to get that TM. There isn't a lot that happens between now and Mount Moon, aside from me catching a Pidgey and Paris for HM use later on, so we're going to jump to Cerulean, where you'll see I'm doing some stat experience training. With Lapras being in the slow level up group, I can do this a lot longer than a Pokemon like, say, Dugong or Jynx for different reasons. And you might see my level and think, you're going to exceed Surge's level cap, you're going to screw yourself, and I'll just say, keep waiting. Once I hit level 20, I decide to take on Misty. I could have probably done this at level 16, and we'll do some testing on my own just to see later, but I'm going to put Staryu to sleep and slowly knock it out with the not very effective Water Gun, because I want as much HP for Starmie as possible, because we're going to be using Bide strats. Since her AI will only go for Tackle, we can use our good HP stat to soak up some hopefully critical hits and deal it back double. In this case though, since Starmie is left on a quarter, I just put it to sleep and slowly knock it out with Water Gun. She gives you the TM for Bubble Beam, which immediately goes on my learn set over Bide, since that move is of no use to me anymore. And let me just say, it's nice to set up Mist and see Sand Attack fail. Good job, Pidgeotto. The only Pokemon on the Rivals team I'm really worried about is Bulbasaur, and if I were at a lower level, say 16, or if I only had Water Gun instead of Bubble Beam, this battle would likely be a run ender, and if it were a solo run, I would probably need a lot of luck, but I can put the plant to sleep and Bubble Beam can 3-shot it, and the only grass move it hits me with is Leech Seed. Now, you probably saw that Lapras was level 21 after that battle, and I still have to go through Nugget Bridge, which I believe has 11 mandatory trainers. There's the Innocent Bystander Rocket, the 2 mandatory trainers I have to face before I can enter Vermilion, and of course, my rival and then Surge. You're probably thinking to yourself, Lapras is going to exceed the level cap, and I'll just spoil it. You would be correct. I know there have been other players and content creators who use their HM Pokemon to soak up experience so that they don't exceed the level cap, and I'll admit, I'm not the biggest fan of that because you're using a Pokemon that doesn't correspond with the type of Nuzlocke you're trying to do. And hey, people have different rules, and if they allow that, that's cool. And what I'm about to tell you, you might say that what I'm doing is dumb and you don't like it. But hey, it's my Nuzlocke and my rules, and I thought it was pretty creative in a way to think of. So let's just jump ahead to my rival on the SSN. I start this battle at level 24, and I'm going to reach level 25 by the time I finish it. And had I not done that extra stat experience grinding, I would have been under the level cap for Surge, as long as I was able to get by Misty and the rival, which hey, there's a chance I could have, and I'll just say, wait till the end of the video to find out. And Lapras is about to go on an adventure, a journey to be the very best Ice-type Pokemon, like no one ever was. To Ice Beam its opponents is its real quest. To knock them out is its cause. It will travel across the land, like Rock Tunnel and Celadon City and the Rocket Game Corner, searching far and wide for Pokemon, or rock types in general, to Bubble Beam down, since I don't have Ice Beam yet, the power its move pool provides. Yeah, I'm done with this bit, that's the best I got. As you can see, Giovanni was no problem, but also, Lapras is now past Erika's level cap. So what exactly am I doing? Well, the plan I had in place was to just power to the mid game with Lapras, leaving the gym leaders untouched, because per Nuzlocke rules, if a Pokemon levels past the gym leader's level cap, you can't use them. And I know this is a different game, but I just kind of think to Gold, Silver, and Crystal, how the gym leaders in Kanto are lower levels than the Elite Four for the most part, so you would technically need to catch new Pokemon in order to be under those level caps. They fixed this in Heart Gold and Soul Silver as far as I know, but my knowledge of Gen 4 games is pretty limited, and I don't plan on using Lapras for Erika or Lieutenant Surge. But also, you could face Koga or Sabrina as the third gym leader if you really wanted to. You have to face Brock and Misty 1-2 no matter what. The guy in Pewter won't let you leave until you defeat Brock, or at least he won't let you progress towards Route 3 in Mount Moon. You could leave and go back to Viridian Forest. And you need Misty's badge in order to use Cut outside of battle. To face Sabrina third, you would just have to do the Rocket Hideout, Pokemon Tower, and Silphco, and Koga would just require the first two. But I guess let me just get to the point. I wanted to get the good rod as fast as I could. You can call it a misplay on my part with the grinding in the early game if you want, leveling past Surge and Erika's level cap. You could say what I'm doing is against the spirit of the challenge, but again, just wait until the end of the video. I've got something for y'all. I have to walk back to Celadon because I haven't defeated Surge yet, and I can fish for a Poliwhirl, who's one level lower than Surge's level cap. Coincidence? I think not. I can then walk to Cerulean and trade this guy the Poliwhirl we just caught for Lola the Jinx. And Jinx is one lucky girl. Not only does she get the Psychic and Ice Beam TMs I got from Saffron and Celadon, but I've also been selling items and TMs that I don't need, so I can buy vitamins for her like calciums and carbos. I can head down to Vermilion and catch my next encounter while fishing, a Shelder. I actually had to look it up as I was playing if it was part Ice type, which it's not. I could evolve it immediately with a Water Stone, which would give me a second Pokemon to use for Surge and Erika, but I want it to stay the way it is for now, because Shelder can learn Ice Beam at level 50, and I'd rather not evolve him prior to that. Before facing Surge, I thought I'd do a bit of stat experience grinding with Lola, but traded Pokemon get additional experience, which could be problematic later on, trying to keep Jinx under the level cap for future gym battles, especially because Jinx doesn't have the grass weakness that 3 of our 4 party members will have, which will make her a good match for Venusaur. I get Lola to the edge of 24 before facing Surge, and pumping vitamins into her prior definitely helped. Ice Beam one-shots Voltorb and Pikachu, and Surge wastes any potential Raichu had with an X-Speed and then Growl, as 2 Ice Beams earn me the Thunder Badge. Let's jump straight to Erika. Jinx had no problem grinding to 28 on her gym trainers. Ice Beam leaves Victreebel on low red health, and instead of Sleep Powder, it chooses Poison Powder, which misses. I finish it, one-shot Tangela with Ice Beam leveling to 29, and Ice Beam will two-shot Vileplume, who hits me with Poison Powder, and I level up to 30 after knocking out her ace. Traded Pokemon level up so fast. The level cap jumps to 43 now, so welcome back to the party, Lapras. I have a choice between Fuchsia and Silph next, but I wanted to go to Fuchsia. I'm going to blitz through the Safari Zone for the final HMs, and I want Koga's badge so I can use Surf outside of battle and get our final encounter. Of course, Surf as a move will be useful for our last encounter as well, and for Shelter and eventually Cloyster, along with having the trapping move Clamp. That could come in clutch. The mandatory jugglers in Koga's gym aren't a problem, although they do poison me, so I have to take 2 separate trips back to the Pokemon Center. Koga is no match for Lola though. I just leave my cursor on Psychic, which one-shots the first 3 Pokemon. When it didn't one-shot Weezing, I was a bit worried. A self-destruct would surely KO Lola, and take out who I believe will be my best party member, but it just goes for Smog. 5 badges, no deaths. After acquiring the Soul Badge, I can surf south of Fuchsia to the Seafoam Islands, a place I don't normally go to. I think I only went here as a little kid to catch Articuno, and the very first time I played Red and Blue, I thought you had to go through here. I have to wait for my repel from surfing to wear off before we can get our final encounter, a Seel. What a cute little front sprite, clapping with his little tongue out. Seel won't stay a Seel for long though, because it evolves at level 34 into Dugong, an underrated Pokemon for solo runs in my opinion. I decide to surf to Cinnabar from here. Originally, I was going to head through the mansion and then face Blaine, but then had a change of heart. While going through the mansion though, I can pick up vitamins that I just dump into Jinx. Plus, there's also the TM for Blizzard here, which I'll admit, I taught to Dugong and pumped PP ups into it, because I forgot that Dugong learns Ice Beam at level 56, and had I remembered, I probably would have evolved Shelter a bit earlier instead of waiting for it to reach level 50. It's alright though, I'll just blame it on my solo running brain taking over. I just gotta do a little better in these Nuzlockes in the future. Which, speaking of, I'm glad you guys have been enjoying these. I've been getting a lot of comments in favor of them, and even though the Ashlock in yellow didn't get the views I hoped, y'all killed it with the positive comments. And don't worry, we're going to be doing the Ashlock in Pokemon Crystal, and really I'd like to complete it in every game. It's going to take quite a bit of planning to navigate around Kanto's level caps though. Might have to box like Vampy and probably Bayleaf in order to keep them under the Kanto level caps, but hey, I'm open to suggestions on that one. So I know in these Nuzlocks I've talked about how I give myself rare candies to cut down on excessive grinding, especially if I lose an attempt. But in this one, I didn't have to use too many, maybe 20 to 25 total. My Pokemon just have answers for a lot of the overworld trainers, and it made grinding, especially stat experience grinding, not as painfully boring, and this Nuzlocke overall didn't take long to complete. Maybe only about an hour and 45 minutes, just because I do pause to look things up and make sure that I'm at the right route for an encounter, etc, etc. Let's go ahead and jump to Silph. Since I'm putting off Blaine, I might as well battle the rival. He leads Pidgeot as I lead Jinx, and Jinx is going to solo his team. I just leave my cursor on Ice Beam for everything. The Gyarados does hit me with Dragon Rage, which does exactly a third because I have 120 max HP, and the Alakazam chips me down a bit with Confusion. Thankfully not confusing, but Venusaur gives me a bit of a scare. Its Razor Leaf, which will always crit, brings me to 28 HP. It's a good thing we outspeed and I don't get a Gen 1 miss. After I defeat the rival, I'm actually going to pick up the free Lapras, because I realized I never caught an HM Pokemon for strength. Giovanni is next, and Dugong makes its debut for you guys to see in battle. Like I did with Jinx, I leave my cursor on one move, Blizzard, which gets one-shots across the board. Sabrina is the next gym leader, and Lapras is going to take the lead on this one. I misclicked going for Thunderbolt because I thought I moved Body Slam back to my top slot, and Kadabra opens with a critical hit Psychic, while I do about a third. Its next Psychic brings me to 53 HP as Body Slam takes it out. Mr. Mime is next, and Sabrina spends more time spamming Barrier and Light Screen than actually attacking. She does heal it once with a Hyper Potion, and Body Slam doesn't inflict paralysis, which is a bit disappointing. She sends out Venomoth next, and I decide to swap to Jinx. Venomoth does hit me with a super effective Leech Life, which does less than a quarter as Psychic one-shots. Last is Alakazam, and her AI is just going to spam Recover. I just go for Ice Beam until I get the eventual freeze, knocking out Alakazam for free. 6 badges, no deaths. It's a trip back to Cinnabar Island to face the Fire-type specialist Blaine, and I just want to say, do you guys remember his gym in the anime? The arena inside the volcano was pretty cool. I wish they did something like that in the Gen 1 games, and actually gave him a Magmar as well. Although they kinda fixed this in the Johto games. I'm going to lead Dewgong in this battle. The unfortunate thing is that 3 of his 4 Pokemon outspeed our Sea Lion. Surf easily one-shots Growlithe and Ponyta, who's actually faster but misses a Fire Spin. Rapidash is also faster, but Blaine uses a Super Potion with him at full HP, as Blizzard crits to one-shot. Why I switched to Blizzard? I have no idea. I just wanted to hit Blaine with a nice move. Last is Arcanine. It hits me with 2 Embers as my second Blizzard crits to one-shot. With the level cap now at 50, we can welcome our final team member at last, Cloyster. Dewgong did so well in the last battle, I decide to let it handle Giovanni. I leave my cursor on Surf and get 5 one-shots. The Nidoking and Dugtrio are faster and hit me with Slash and Thrash, both of which crit. Slash will always crit for Dugtrio, but that's besides the point. I get down to 43 HP, but the Rhydon is just so bad. Plus we have a 4-time super effective move in Surf, 8 badges, no deaths. We have one last battle against our rival, and I'm going to try something new for this Nuzlocke that you guys have said in the comments, which is having level caps for the last 6 battles, and not using rare candies once I get to the league. This won't be present in some future Nuzlockes because they were recorded prior to the suggestions, but I think some of them follow those rules anyway just cause it ended up that way. Anyway, Jinx, just like the battle in Silphco, is going to solo this rival as well. Because Pidgeot's opening quick attack did nearly a third of my HP, I'm going to play things safe against Gyarados and Alakazam, putting both to sleep with Lovely Kiss and chipping them down with Ice Beam, hopefully 2, but ultimately 3-shotting both. And while Venusaur could have potentially dealt some damage with Razor Leaf, it just goes for growth, but the special boost won't be enough to save it from a second Ice Beam. In Victory Road, I'm going to pick up any item I come across where I don't have to battle any optional trainers and then sell it at Celadon for one last round of vitamin pumping, while also doing a bit of stat experience grinding on the early routes of the game for the remaining party members before I candy them up to the cap. I feel like I should have at least ventured back to the Seafoam Islands to catch Articuno, that way I could say I captured all of our possible encounters. But I would also technically break Nuzlocke rules since I would be double dipping on encounters there, since that's where we caught Seel. With the team all trained and candied up, this is what we're working with. We have Lola the Jinx at level 53 with Psychic, Ice Beam, Ice Punch, and Lovely Kiss. Dewgong, the Sea Lion Pokemon, with Surf, Blizzard, Rest, and Body Slam. Cloyster, who hasn't seen much screen time to date because it's been sitting in the box as a shelter, with Surf, Withdraw, Ice Beam, and Clamp. And last, Lapras, our starter, with Thunderbolt, Body Slam, Hydro Pump, and Ice Beam. It's time for the final 5 trainers of the run, and I don't expect our party to struggle, and it starts with determining who's really the best Ice-type trainer in Kanto, as we kick things off with Lorelei. She leads Dewgong as I lead Lapras. Thunderbolt doesn't get the one-shot, and it just goes for Growl, and misses. On one end, I wish it had hit just to boost our special, but I'm also glad it didn't because I'm going to be using our physical attacks on Jinx. Thunderbolt can one-shot Cloyster thanks to the crit, and next is Slowbro. Thunderbolt is a two-shot on it as it also whiffs a Growl, and then comes out Lorelei's Lola. It's faster and hits us with a weak double slap, as Body Slam nearly one-shots and paralyzes, let us getting the outspeed, knocking it out, and moving on to the mirror match. Our Lapras is superior though. 3 Thunderbolts take out her Loch Ness monster as it only hits us with Confuse Ray, but Lapras has no problem getting through it. Bruno is next, and it's time for Cloyster to make its battle debut. And this battle is a bit boring, so I'm going to speed it up. Surf the first 3 Pokemon, and then I take some time setting up on the second Onix because I wanted to one-shot Machamp with Surf, which I do. Agatha is next, and this battle is a simple one for Lola. I just leave my cursor on Psychic and 1 or 2 shot her entire team, although I'm a bit surprised that even with the boosted experience due to being a traded Pokemon, Lola only levels up once in this battle. Lance is last. Lapras has Ice Beam, Lapras has Thunderbolt. Lapras can comfortably get one-shots on all of Lance's Pokemon. These 2 moves make him trivial for just about any Pokemon. But what about the champion? It's time for the final battle against Melt. I lead our starter Lapras as he leads Pidgeot. Wing Attack does a tiny bit of chip damage as Ice Beam one-shots the lead bird. Next is Alakazam. It's faster and fires off a Psybeam that doesn't confuse or crit, as Body Slam leaves it on about a quarter, letting it get in another attack. This time going for Psychic, which does a decent amount of damage despite not critting. It thankfully doesn't lower our special either. I knock it out and move on to Rhydon. While Lapras could have stayed in against this thing, I decide to safety swap to Cloyster to get it some more screen time. And from here, it's a lot of back and forth with me going for Withdraw and Rhydon using Leer or Tail Whip before the combo is finally broken with it using Fury Attack. I decide let's just go ahead and stop playing games. Ice Beam one-shots Rhydon and the following Gyarados before I level up losing my badge boost against Arcanine. I can still set up a few withdraws against it, which I do as Ember brings me to about half before Surf one-shots it. Last is Venusaur. A Razor Leaf would probably end my clam from here. Ice Beam leaves it on low red health as it charges for Solar Beam. We fire one final Ice Beam for the win. That was a fun run. Ice-type Pokemon are definitely fun to use in Kanto and don't disappoint, and I'm honestly excited to try this one in Gen 2, but I have another Nuzlocke planned for my first Gen 2 one. But if you remember earlier in this video, I said I had something to add at the end here, and I wanted to test this. Can Lapras make it to the mid-game without breaking the level cap, which I believe it will. The final team's movesets will look a bit different, which isn't a big deal, because I am going to use some TMs to help me out, and all it would really mean is that Jinx would probably have Blizzard instead of Ice Beam on her moveset, and Dugong would keep Headbutt. But those are the only changes I anticipate. Let's start with Brock. Minimum battles to him, no problem. I do have to two-shot the rock types, but what are they going to do to me honestly? I take on Misty at level 18 instead of 20. With Surge's level cap of 24, I should come in right underneath it. This battle is a bit slower than my first playthrough, because I'm a lower level and because I'm not going to be using Bide strats. Instead, it's just Sing and Water Gun. Put Staryu to sleep, slowly knock it out with Water Gun, hope for some crits here and there to speed things up, which I do get, and do the same to Starmie. And things are close on Starmie. It gets me down to 9 HP, and a crit tackle would have taken me out, but Lapras pulls through. This time, I come into the Rival 3 fight at level 23, and I'm going to hit level 24 after knocking out Ivysaur. I skip the Body Slam TM because I didn't want to level up in the middle of the Surge fight. I know the hardcore Nuzlocke rules say that you have to be below the level cap at the start of the battle, but I see some people inch to the brink of the next level to level up in the middle of the battle, and I can't lie, I'm not a personal fan of that. It just kind of seems like against the spirit of the challenge to me, but hey, everybody has different rules and who gives a shit. Speaking of Surge, I know if Raichu gets off a Thunderbolt, I'm as good as dead, and I'll probably give this one more go before I say, hey, if you want to say I cheated by putting Surge off, be my guest. but Lapras pulls it off, two-shotting Voltorb, one-shotting Pikachu, and putting the evolved electric rodent to sleep, and three-shotting it with a combination of Bubble Beam and Water Gun, with Surge saying, "Whoa! I just lost to a water Pokemon." But the true test is Erika, and once I got Fly in Celadon City, I sold all the items I could, purchased some vitamins, flew back to Pallet, and just knocked out level 2 and 3 Pidgey and Rattatas to get as much stat experience as I could to make this one possible. And it starts out in the best possible way with a critical hit Ice Beam to one-shot Victory Bell. Ice Beam then one-shots Tangela, and I wasn't sure what Vileplume would possibly go for after Ice Beam left it on a sliver. I know Mega Drain or Petal Dance, I'm good, but if it goes for Sleep Powder and hits, I'm more than likely finished. But Erika uses a super potion, so yes, Lapras can get to the mid game under the level cap. And while I could have played this one out to the end, I'm gonna call it here. You already know I'm just gonna power to the Super Rod, catch Jinx, catch Shelter, demolish Koga with Jinx, catch Seel, and it's smooth sailing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this Ice-type Nuzlocke. I don't know if this will be the last video for 2025. I'll probably make a community post when the next run will be, which it's going to be Excelgor in Gen 5, and that thing is a Pokemon. I'll just leave it there. Special shout out to my channel members, and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Take care, everybody.